The stress. Hi everyone, welcome to episode 12 of Marketing Rapid Fire. We have all of our 4 panelists here, so thank God. Please, dear God, for this session, just keep all of them here. Priyam, thanks for the last minute surprise. If you all probably have heard about me or know about me, my name is Vanchika. I host this lovely show fortnightly where I get to chat with four amazing marketers, learn all of their tips and tricks, take it and implement it myself, which I really suggest all of you to do as well. This is India's first ever marketing quiz show, so it's really exciting because the way the show is structured, it's very conversational and zero gyan. I mean, they don't have time to give gyan. तो gyan kahan se denge? Which is the beauty of this show. This show is divided into 4 segments, and we'll go through it as the show goes on. Really excited to have all of you with us today, the lovely panel, as well as all of our lovely attendees. Welcome on board. If this is your first time here, please do let us know. I'd love to see whole and new faces here, and yeah, definitely do stick around. Please do ask questions using the chat, or you can use the question feature. Either way, I'll try and keep track and try and get all of them answered. That being said, really excited to welcome our panel, Anisha, Priyam, Sam, and Shivani. Thank you so much for taking your time out this Saturday. So lovely to have you all here. Would love to learn a little bit about you. So quickly, if you can give us the elevator pitch about you and what you do, that would be absolutely lovely. Anisha, you can go first.
I work in the growth and marketing team of CureFit, and what I love doing is I love creating communications and I love creating conversations between brands and consumers. And I've been doing that for almost 7 years now. So I'm just one of those people who knew at 16 what they really wanted to do, and I think this is something I can do for the rest of my life.
That's so awesome. Welcome on board. Priyam, why don't you tell us a little bit about
Yeah. So, very good evening, guys. Very good evening, guys. Thanks for joining on a Saturday. And this is Priyam here. I head the operations and growth for HouseJoy. HouseJoy is a home services company. You guys are aware, and generally we help people getting their things fixed at their houses. Yes, I have joined HouseJoy for the last 1 year back, and been working very closely with the leadership team in terms of driving HouseJoy from 5 cities to 15 cities. Currently, we're there in 15 cities at this point in time. Yeah.
Wow. Welcome on board. Sam, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey guys, Vanshi, thanks first of all for inviting me. I think I'm the youngest here, so I'm feeling a bit intimidated. So yeah, I'm currently at a health tech startup based out of Bangalore called Fable. So I lead the digital marketing and growth at Fable. I joined as the first marketer and just grew like that. And since we're in health tech, it's been unprecedented growth over the past 3-4 months. My background is in engineering, but like half of the engineers in the country, I just joined for the sake of it. But I was a hyper back in. I used to hype a lot of events. I was, all of that. So that's when I really knew that I wanted to do marketing, and started out in business development, upskill myself, and just started from scratch. And yeah, here we are. Thank you so much for inviting me. Looking forward to this.
So happy to have you with us. Shivani, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks so much, Vanchika. Hi, I'm Shivani. I work for Lead Squared, which is a marketing automation and sales execution platform. Unlike Anisha, I had no idea what I wanted to do at 16, but I figured that out now. And I've been with Lead Squared for quite a few years now. I have done various things in marketing. I've always been in the marketing team. I've done various things, done a bit of content, done a bit of events, not moved to the PPC role. But basically moved around areas where I've had to write or to, host events on the speaking platform, essentially. So a whole bunch of different things within marketing. Thank you so much, Vanchika, for having me.
Welcome on board, everybody. And again, thanks so much for joining us. All right, let's quickly get started. I know our audience is super excited, and I did a quick poll, and so there's a 50-50 split going on between people who are here for the first time and people who have been here before. So, welcome to everybody again. So, the first three questions are in the general domain. They're just to kind of get the conversation started, loosen you guys up a little bit before we get into the hard hitting stuff. So this also is a trial sort of round. So you might hear the buzzer. It's occasional that the buzzer rings in the first three questions, but if it does, you know what to do. And cool, let's quickly get started. Okay, first question. With the rise of LinkedIn and people actually taking charge of their personal brand, what do you think are the main reasons why personal branding has come out to be such an important aspect of not just a marketer's life, but for everybody? Why do you think that personal branding needs to exist, and why does it exist? So, Anisha, if you want to go first.
See, at the end of the day, any business is based on a very simple core proposition. It's called selling, and that's where the revenue comes from. And if you can't sell yourself, you can't sell anything else. It's as simple as that. So that's why personal branding is so important. It's important to be able to sell yourself in the right manner, with the right messaging, and to the right audience. And that's the only way you'll be able to. If you can't do that, then I don't know. That's pretty much it.
Fairly true. Fairly true. Priyam?
Yeah, so yes, I personally very strongly believe that personal branding is very important for a marketer, primarily because you also are carrying the brand on your shoulders, right? And that's the point in time when you need to realize that the way you are connected, the way you are putting things up, okay, in different domains and different platforms, it takes the brand to a different level altogether. So it goes hands on hand in terms of how you want to scale up your business, and also in terms of as being a personal brand altogether. It helps the organization also in a big way.
Very true. Very true. Sam, go next.
Yeah, so I think personal branding is like super important, especially over the past 2-3 years. We've seen like a huge boom, and if you're a marketer, I think the number one goal, the number of advice I give to newcomers who are joining, when they're just starting out, is to start with your LinkedIn profile, because everyone sees your LinkedIn profile apart from your resume. So the number one advice I give is to, put your bio, put your, headline, like Anisha said, sell yourself properly, and, you might land a job. Also, I think freelancers, it's super important, because if you want to get recognized for your work, or also get a shout out from your connections, I think personal branding is super important, because if you're quiet, nobody knows about what you're doing. And if you want new clients, or you want to take yourself to the next level, I think personal branding is super important.
Lovely.
Okay, so I can actually tell you that personal branding is very important because of my own example. So I run the webinar program at Lead Squared, which means all the emails go out in my name, and it's been going on for a couple of years now. So we'll have like a prospect come back to the company saying, "Hey, I received emails from Shibani," and that has happened for the last 5 years, and that's how they have come back to Lead Squared. And just saying so that since I've only worked with Lead Square, there'll be all the examples will come from my work experience there. It's not that I'm promoting it just like that. So it really helps with brand recall. It really helps with building trust. So, because they've been receiving my emails for a very long duration, and like I said, for about close to 6-7 years, they want to then give the product a shot and see what the product can do for them. So definitely, I would say personal brand now is all about how you can help the company grow by doing your bit on social media, essentially, right now at least.
Awesome. All right, we had the first buzzer, so that's good. You just hit it at the 1 minute mark, so that's good. That's a first. All right, let's move on. Unfortunately, Anisha's no connection, but she'll be back in a quick second, so we'll just continue on till she joins in. Next question goes to you first. So
Yeah.
marketing is a very interesting field, and a lot of people who don't study marketing jump into marketing. Hint, hint to all the engineers. Um, can you really become a marketer without marketing knowledge? Is that a reality, a myth, a legend? What are your thoughts?
So, what I strongly believe, marketing as a whole is a huge topic altogether. In terms of branding, also comes a part of it. These days, a lot of new stuff has gone into it. Okay, there is a realization that a lot of people do a bit of influencer marketing, and they come and they realize they have done a lot of marketing which is not right. So what I believe that a marketer should be data driven. He should know how to understand data really well, and that's where you need to understand that going in deep into analytics and studying them really well to give the right results is very important. For a marketer, yes, a basic amount of study is required, but doesn't need to be be thorough with years and years of or everything comes from on the job experience. What I strongly believe.
Got it. Okay, very
Awesome.
Sam.
Yeah, I disagree. I don't think anyone needs to learn marketing to become a marketer. You need two basic things. You need to observe and be intuitive. If you can learn by yourself, I think anyone can become a quality marketer. If you have good intuition, you understand what's happening around you, you understand your consumer, you have that mind that, is able to grasp what your audience wants. I think you're a marketer naturally. And if you're able to promote, you're a marketer naturally, so but what I do feel is especially in 2020, it's super important to upskill yourself. So staying relevant to the current times and the current tools and all the platforms that are available, I think it's super important to kind of stay updated about everything. So you need to be on your toes as a marketer. It's not the lazy man's profession, especially in 2020. So I think anyone can become a marketer, but to stay on top, to be a quality marketer, you need to. That's my buzzer. You need to kind of be updated.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
Thanks.
Shivani?
Yeah, I second Sam there. I come from a journalism background. I had a colleague who came from an engineering background. So, and they were both in the marketing team and they were doing wonders. So yes, you have to be observant and you have to be flexible and you have to be able to adapt to the newer ways, especially now that we're moving towards digital is everything, more or less. You need to be open to, allowing that to affect your work, allowing that to represent how you're doing your work. So you need to be flexible there. But at the same time, of course, if I have to admit, then studying specifically on marketing things will help you at the initial stages for sure. Compared to a fresher and compared to someone who has studied the basics, there'll be a big difference there. But learning on the job, that's the key. It really is.
Yeah, that's so true. And I mean, I totally agree with all of you because I have friends who are not marketers in marketing, and then I have friends and myself also, like I've studied marketing, and it's always something that's with the back of my head. I'm like, how do people who don't study marketing understand marketing? Just baffles me. But okay, cool. Next question. Name the top 2 things in marketing that you really truly enjoy, and then 2 things that you wish like didn't exist or didn't happen. Like for example, like I am not a numbers person at all. Like you ask me to crunch numbers and I'm like, I can't do this stuff. But what are your top 2 things that you really like about marketing and top 2 things you don't like? Priyam?
So, I'll take this up. So currently, in terms of the things that I really like is, which is also quite trending at this point in time, and a lot of eventually HouseJoy has incorporated that into the system of marketing is me marketing right now. Okay, which is doing wonders for us. Okay, something which is very exciting. Team is really finding it good fun time, working on memes, creating the right meme at the right time, and that is where it just lightens up the whole load that you have in the team, and that's really helps us in achieving that. Also, in terms of the sense of achievement, I'll say. Which is basically when you do a campaign or do run a campaign and it goes to some a certain amount of success and it gives the right amount of results, that is where it cheers up the whole team, and that is where I think these are the two achievements which really motivates and gets the team going.
Got it. Got it. Sam? Two things you like and two things you don't like about marketing.
Two things I absolutely love about marketing. It's the creativity that's involved. When you're planning when you're planning a campaign or you're trying to launch something, there's a lot of creativity. The second is I love the teamwork that is involved, because marketing is not a one-man show. You need a team to build a good marketing strategy. So I think the team and the creativity, two things I absolutely hate is you pay money. You have to pay a lot of money these days. Which my boss will be like, no, what's happening? So, you need to pay money. That's the reality of the system today. You have to pay to get eyeballs in. And second, everyone hates a flop show. So you launch a campaign, there's a flop, you're flat on your face. So I hate that.
True. Yeah. I mean, not everything can be successful. I mean, that would be great if it was. Shivani?
I can't say that I like and dislike specific things, but I can say what I like and dislike. So liking, of course, the first thing is freedom to do things how you want to do it. There's a lot of flexibility there, and I'm using words that our panelists have used because it's all sorts of comes in together. The flexibility that you get, as a marketer, to be able to execute the work the way you want to do it, that's just amazing. I don't see that in a lot of other departments or functions. And the downside, what you mentioned, for sure, I just can't do reports. That's just not me. That's not what I can do. Go back and look at the numbers and each point, what happened where, and that's just a nightmare for me, to be very honest. So that's basically my point.
Awesome. Anisha, what are the top two things you like about marketing and top two things you dislike about marketing?
I'm going to start with the things that I dislike about marketing first. Because if you ask me to talk about what I like about marketing, I can go on for hours and a minute is going to be very less. So I think the one thing that I really dislike about marketing is every person you meet, be it your parents, be it your friends, be it somebody you're dating, turns into consumer research. Because the moment you start talking to them about something and you're like, wait, acha, but how? So it's like a layering conversation constantly going on. I don't remember that I had like a proper conversation with somebody without thinking, oh my God, this is a consumer insight. And the second thing is, if you're a marketer, it's terrible driving. You just cannot drive. Like when I'm driving, half my mind is on the billboards all over. I'm like, oh, this new campaign is launched. Oh, this ad is going on. My God. So I think that's what I really dislike about being a marketer. What I love about marketing, I think I love how I told you, see?
Go on, you can complete.
What I love about marketing is how you can tell stories. You can pick up any thread and you can pick up the smallest of the concepts and tell a story and make the tiniest little difference because you've created the right piece of communication. I think that's the most beautiful part about being a marketer.
That's awesome. All right. So a couple of questions. I guess now we got the hang of how it goes, the flow, and I'm promising you the questions are not very hard. If I can't answer those questions, I don't give it to the panelists. So you're all in safe hands. Don't worry. So the next segment we're going to jump into is social media, which we all are on social media. And all of us have watched that Social Dilemma on Netflix documentary and pretend like we're so overly concerned. But fact is, we're all on social media, no matter what. So I think it's an important and interesting domain to talk about, especially at this time. So Anisha, first question out to you. So reach and impressions, right? Both very important metrics. But for a startup that's trying to scale, how do you optimize one of the metrics and whichever one you pick? So if you had to pick between reach and impressions and how you optimize for it?
I think it's important to know what your objective is. If your objective is to sort of drive some sort of a recall or consideration, then impressions is more important, because you'll find out what the right set of your target audience is, which means there is a limited reach and there is a very well defined reach. And then the idea is to have more impressions with a higher frequency. If your objective is to sort of have a term or a recall campaign or an awareness campaign, then reach becomes more important, because then you're trying to reach as many people. Of course, both are constrained by budget. So I think it's very important to first understand what the objective is. And if a startup is, I'm moving in with an assumption that it's your top of mind recall or awareness would be something which would be the primary objective, then I think reach becomes more important.
Got it. Okay. Priyam?
Vanshika, I would request you to just repeat the question because I just lost in between. I couldn't
Okay.
get that.
So the question was, for a startup that's scaling and you have two metrics, reach or impressions, which one would you pick and how would you optimize for it?
If I consider the home services business, definitely it's reach right now, and how we optimize that is basically it all boils down to the kind of campaigns that we run. All boils down to how you connect with the consumer, kind of creatives that you have in place, and what's you going to achieve. So if we are going to achieve the reach, then we basically go very aggressively in all the channels and try and drive that from there.
Got it. Got it. Sam?
Yeah, I think I would kind of resonate with what Anisha kind of mentioned. I think it really depends on the kind of campaign that you are implementing for your brand or for your startup. If you're just launching something, then obviously it's reach. You want to reach as much of people you want, right? But if it's kind of like ad recall, then obviously you would want to see your impressions, how many people have seen it, over and over again. So yeah, it really depends on what you're trying to achieve for your campaign or for your strategy, and then kind of prioritize either one.
Got it.
So I have a very short answer for this. I think initially it's reach and later on it's impression that you need to prioritize. But initially it's always going to be reach for a startup.
Got it. Very interesting. And how do you optimize for it?
I think we have.
Okay, awesome. All right. So next question, and one that I constantly keep talking about to everybody that's in social, is that hashtag strategy. And I mean, if you look on Google for hashtag strategy, you will find so many different articles in so many different ways, and people boasting about, like, look at these metrics through hashtag. There's that single thing that shows, from hashtag wala traffic. And I see it on all my WhatsApp groups all the time. So very important question to ask is, what hashtag strategy really works, and how do you kind of decide which hashtags to use? I mean, there are the basic rules that we all know of, which is like the high reach, the medium, the low, but let's take it one step further in that and really help our audience understand how to use hashtags and what has worked for you. So Anisha, if you want to go first.
I think while using hashtags, it's very, very important to understand, again, who are you trying to communicate with and what are you trying to communicate. And that becomes like your core in terms of what are you going to sort of use as a hashtag. Now, for example, if I have a tagline as a brand that says be better every day, I would want people to actively start using it. Then in all of my communication, irrespective of what it's saying, the baseline will always be better every day, so that people notice it over a period of time and start using it in context. That becomes something which is personalized to my brand, and that is used to build momentum on that hashtag for over a longer period of time. In addition to that, that's not the only thing that you use. In addition to that, you will also use contextual hashtags. So, for example, recently, I think a lot of brands have gotten into the communication around IPL because that's what's been trending. So, to give your content the correct reach and the correct meaning and the correct tonality, you will say hashtag be better every day, hashtag IPL 2020, and the 20 other things that you'd want to say around it.
Got it. Priyam, go for it.
Yeah, so see, primarily what we do in terms of our social media and hashtag campaigns, we primarily look for the trending topics, okay, which are there. We always want to be visible and should be around the trending topics which are there happening either of the social media channels. So what we generally do is we pick up the topics, work on the creatives, memes or creatives, because a good creative is very important there. Because if you are picking up a topic and your creative is not relating to that particular hashtag, then your campaign is not going to go anywhere. So it's very important that you create the right creatives around that particular thing and pick up the trending topics. There is no problem. Be visible every day with the trending topics and with the right amount of creatives and the right creatives in place.
Got it. Sam?
Yeah, so I think first thing first, hashtags are not dead. A lot of marketers think that hashtags are just too over that, it's over the top of everything. But I think hashtags are super important. It's important to start with popular hashtags, but be relevant. Just don't do any hashtags, right? You start with popular hashtags, then depending on the campaign, you have your own hashtag for your own brand, or if it's your own personal brand that you're building, you have your own hashtag that you want people to resonate with, right? So that in the end, on LinkedIn, on the left-hand side, when you see hashtags, follow hashtag. You want that also to be part of your audience. So you always start with the popular hashtags, go for reach first, and then kind of build on your own hashtags and be relevant based on the content and the messaging that you're trying to send out. So that's, in a nutshell, what I would do for hashtags.
Got it.
So I think, of course, when it comes to hashtags, it differs from channel to channel. The way I would use hashtags in probably Instagram won't be the same that I would do on LinkedIn or Facebook. So speaking from a B2B context, for me, it's basically about what is your message. And I will use a hashtag based on what my message is. So let's say if I'm having an event, I'm promoting an event, I would use a hashtag related to the event. If I am promoting content for a specific industry, just an example, real estate industry, I want people from the real estate industry to look at my content, I would hashtag them. I know on Instagram, we use a lot more hashtags, but like maybe on LinkedIn, I wouldn't use as many. I would again just come back to the message that I have and who am I looking to target, what is my objective. And the most important hashtags within that I can think of, and I know there could be plenty, just the most important ones is what I would use for my post at that point.
Got it. All right. Next question now to Anisha again. So stories are a particularly interesting way to start conversations and really humanize your brand. How do you do it so that it's effective and doesn't just seem like, story dalna tha, aaj calendar pe to dal diya. What would you do to kind of increase that effectiveness? And, I mean, not to kind of say something bad about people, but I know people within their company, they put up a story and be like, yeah, sare jaake story pe comment kar do na, please. So how do you actually get your audience to interact with you and not just start the buzz by telling your nearby to be like, yeah, jaake comment kar do na, please. So what are your strategies and what have you done?
Okay. I think on Instagram, stories are a lot more fun and a lot more engaging. And I can say that because I think personally for my brand, stories drive like crazy amount of engagement. And that's because there is so much that you can do around it, right? There are polls that are available. There are questions that you can ask. For example, just a very simple example, you're hosting this session. Now, if you were to just put a link on stories and say, okay, these are the 4 people who are going to be a part of my session tomorrow. Are there any questions that are crowdsourced that you'd like to ask them about marketing? So the key point is your feed is used for engagement because that's where you're going to drive like a lot of likes and that those double taps. Stories have to be actually used for a lot of conversations. Ask your polls, ask for opinions, ask for what users want to see. Something as simple as what do you want us to take up as a next topic? So the clear demarcation for me, when I said is keep it simple, keep it conversational, keep it engaging, and make use of the features that Instagram provides.
Got it. Absolutely. I'm interested to see what the other 3 say because you've covered a lot. So I'm waiting to see what new things come up after this. You did a very detailed run through of stories. So thank you for that. Really good answer. Priyam?
Yeah, so Anisha has spoken most of it, and
I think that's going to be the trend.
yeah. So what I just want to add on to it is that basically stories are really super engaging at times. When you want to get some quick engagement with your consumers and get some quick feedbacks, or create a poll or get some quick thing, it really helps you get that immediate responses, because or say run some kind of a contest, and you want to have, say, drive a lot of traffic onto that particular campaign. So that's where it really helps you. And yes, I strongly believe that creatives play and a very strong role and very important role in terms of driving that particular thing for a story to be successful.
Yeah, I think story is an additional source for you, right, in your social media traffic or scheme of things. So if a brand is not using stories, you're just missing out on that important source. So I think, but what is different in stories is to be hyper contextual. I think that's super important, because stories is there for 24 hours. So what are you going to talk about that one moment that would capture the most eyeballs, or capture the most engagement, whatever that may be? It would be a swipe up, or reply, or DM me, or like, or react to one of the stickers. So there are, again, several things that you can do on stories. So I think it is super important, and you need to be super contextual, because if you're just putting something for the sake of it, I think you've got your story game wrong.
Totally. So, I would agree with that.
I will sort of not summarize, but just add bits from what I did not see that was not mentioned by the other one. So that's something that we've been doing in our company, and it sort of ties back to your very first question about building your own brand. So what we've been doing is each employee, let's say, tells a story, and LinkedIn is actually a very good tool for that from a B2B perspective. A lot of people are just sharing their stories, sharing their experiences on LinkedIn, and at the same time, it helps your brand, it helps your company as well. So they're sort of tying it an experience with the company, so that obviously generates traffic towards a company page, and at the same time for you as well. So that is a brand building exercise on its own.
Got it. Very interesting. All right. So now's the fun part where we're going to switch the order over. So Shivani is going to go first, then Sam, then Priyam, then Anika for the next 6 questions. So let's get you started with the next domain, which is all about landing pages and conversions and all of that, which every campaign needs behind anything that they're doing. So I think you're a pro at this, so I'm really excited to hear your answers. So Shivani, first question out to you is, when creating a landing page for your campaign, what do you prefer? Do you prefer it to be minimalistic and kind of explain like top level, like this is what is happening, or would you like kind of jam in as much information as you can in those 3 to 5 scrolls? Like, what is your take, and what has worked for you? Like, I mean, so when you look at, say, a Google landing page or an Apple landing page, there's hardly any text. I don't know what this thing is. It just looks very pretty. But then there are some that you see and it's just text and text and text and text, and you're like, how much do I have to read? So yeah, what works for you? And if you can give us any tips around creating that perfect landing page, that would be really appreciated.
Yes. So yes, I've created several landing pages, so I know a thing or two on this. But I will say yes, minimalistic way is the way forward, because if you have too much information on the page, the person gets confused. What are they supposed to do? What is the call to action? What do you want the person to do when they look at your page? What activity do you want them to take? And the less information you have, the lesser chance of them getting confused and not knowing what they're supposed to do. It's not even being confused. It's just that they'll get distracted by something else. So you have to make your heading has to be very clear. It should stand out. It should be a clean page. The form has to be, so shorter forms are better, because it encourages someone to fill up the form rather than a really long form with so many details, when somebody would be like, why am I sharing so many details just to join a session or just to, try a tool? I mean, they shouldn't be asking you for so much information. And the other thing that I've seen work on the page, since I have 1 minute, is of course reviews and customer testimonials. That I feel works wonders, and try to implement that wherever possible.
Got it. Lovely. Sam?
Shivani is like just hitting the buzzer.
On point.
Yeah. On point, man. Yeah, that's a skill right there. Yeah, so landing pages, I think I read somewhere, or I think one of my creative directors told me that it takes 2 seconds for the user to make up his mind what to do on a particular website or landing page. So in those 2 seconds, you literally have the responsibility to either get the user to bounce off or he's going to stay. So it's super important how, based on the campaign or based on the product, based on the brand, it's super important to understand what you're trying to communicate. So copy plays a huge role along with design. So there are a lot of UI UX practices that, you can put into. I'm sure 1 minute, I can't explain all of that, but, yeah, but the most important thought for me is that in that 2 seconds, hey, when I land on that page, what's am I going to stay or am I going to leave? And based on that, work backwards and build your copy, build your design, and build your CTAs.
Lovely. Priyam?
Yeah, so there are 2 aspects to it. It depends on what kind of business and what is the objective of that particular landing page. If it is a lead generation, it has to be minimalistic in nature because people don't want to give too many information. Now, if you are, say, as Sam might agree with me, is that if you are a healthcare provider or you want to share a lot of content with your subscribers, you need to push a lot of content, right? Because they want to read about a particular thing. You want to read about the details of a doctor. In home services, in my services, so basically there are a lot of information. We cannot keep it minimalistic. But yes, as a marketer, you need to get into customer shoes. You have to understand as a consumer what I will like to go through, and then replicate the same thing, discuss with your UX, UI guys, and replicate the same thing. But the most important thing is you have to be customer centric. You have to have that understanding what my consumer will like when he sees this particular landing page. So that's my point.
Anisha, I'm just going to quickly repeat the question. The question was around landing pages and the debate between being minimalistic or just kind of cramming in as much information as you can. So what are your thoughts on that, and what has worked for you when you do landing pages for CureFit?
Okay, so when you're doing a landing page, I think I'm going to go with what Priyam said. I think, and that is extremely important. The user experience when it comes to a landing page is very, very critical. The more number of layers that you have, the higher are the chances of a dropout rate. And in case you're trying to get a lot of information from somebody, and for example, if you're trying to get somebody to build a CV, or you're trying to get a lot of information in those sense, you can't overwhelm the user. It has to be very simple, minimum clicks in the first go. Once you've got the consumer hooked on, you have all the time in the world to get whatever information from them that you like. But the first entry barrier has to be as low as possible.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah, absolutely. All right, interesting. Shivani, next one again goes back to you. So there's always this huge debate of like, how do we prioritize what we need to say? And there's always a confusion because the business has 20 things to say, but the customer might care about 1, 2, 3 maybe. So how do you go about prioritizing the things that go in your landing page in order? Like, how do you understand that, okay, my consumer who's landing on this page is probably going to be asking these questions. So how do you prioritize it? What has worked for you?
So I don't think there's a straight answer initially. What I can say is, in my experience, in the B2B experience at least, is that the customer will tell you what they're looking for, and you can only get that after trial and error. So initially you just go with what you think is important, and through surveys over a period of time while interacting with the customer, then you come to know what are their pain points, and that's when you can actually address those pain points and put that out. So somebody is facing an issue with this, which we never thought of, as a product marketer or even a salesperson. Only the customer will tell you that. So basically gathering data from people who are actually using your tool and then using that content in your landing page, not just landing page, in your articles, website pages, whatever content you're publishing, it needs to resonate what the customer wants to hear or think.
It's just
Yeah, I think when it comes to
go for it, Sam.
Sorry. Yeah, so I think when it comes to what to put in a landing page, it's like a skill in itself, like it's copywriting 101, right? So it's super important to do your homework, understand your audience. Is it B2B? Is it B2C? Understand the industry. Look at example landing pages that you've seen other brands do. What are what are other brands doing that are that they've done successfully, and implement the same, And another thing, I think a basic thing to do is A/B test, like drive traffic to one landing page, drive a set of traffic to another landing page, see what's performing with two different messaging, and I think see what's converting better, and you will get an idea of what in like a week or so. I think these days in a week you'll get to know everything. So in a week or so you'll know what message is really what message is really resonating with your audience. So I think A/B test, understanding your audience, and looking at different examples from different brands, taking key points from
Got
there.
it. Lovely.
Geez, this buzzer is like, I'm loving this.
Every minute. Prem, go for it.
So Vanshika, I'm really sorry. You have to repeat the
So
question.
the question was that when you're creating a landing page, how do you decide the order of things that you say to your person who's reading, or how many things? Forget the order also. Like, how many things do you put and how do you prioritize it? What has worked for you?
So yes, so what has worked for me is basically recently, see, home services is basically a very different industry altogether. Okay, a consumer will use your services when he has that demand. He will not research a lot or a month prior, or say 15 days prior, or a week prior, or even a day prior. He has a requirement, he will come to your platform and book a service, right? So the order at which he can see the information and order at which we can solve the problem, it is very important, because if somebody might come for electrician, somebody might come for a carpenter, somebody might come for any of these services, home services, basically salon at home, right? So a beautiful lady wants to get a facial done. So if I'm not able to show that content, or say or that particular inputs, then she will not be interested to go ahead with the service. So it is very important for a home services company to show and showcase the list of services at the first place. And then as Anisha told in the last question also, once you hook them up, you can always take them and do whatever you want. So it's the initial stuff and the initial information which you share, which is very important.
Totally. Anisha?
Always feel people have lost in this world of digital marketing. People have lost out on what the charm of old school marketing used to be. When you're in a conversation with somebody and you're trying to understand, what are the most important questions that you'll ask first? You'll go for the things that you want to know first, right? Instead of going, you know that if you keep the conversation too long, they're going to get bored and they're going to say, "Bas karo yaar, kitna puchoge?" क्रिस में 4 चीजें पूछनी है. You ask the top 4 things first, and then you, like I said, you always have time to go back to them for consumer feedback. You have more pages that you can make them interact with. You have more avenues and touch points that you can tell them, okay, give me feedback here, or do you like this or not? Why do you want to make one landing page with 20,000 questions and make it very boring? Treat it like a conversation between two people, right? And that is where your answer lies.
Yeah, I like that you're saying that, it's just a conversation, right? Because like landing pages are sometimes obviously meant for people who've never interacted with your brand. So, if it turns them off there, they're probably never going to come back. And then we also use it for people that are, returning customers and stuff. So with them, the conversation is a little more chill and kind of little laid back. So very true. It has to be very conversational. Absolutely. Shivani, next question is, since you said you've done a lot, so this question, I would love to hear the whole 1 minute answer. What are the tools that you use to really check if this landing page is working. I know a couple, but I'm sure you guys know much more than I do. But yeah, please do share what you use.
I will again have a very biased answer. As I have said before, I've only worked with Lead Squared, and Lead Squared has a landing page tool. So I've only used Lead Squared landing page tool, which has worked for me clearly. So obviously, the things you need to check again are how many visits you're getting on the page, and then compare that to how many conversions actually happen. And speaking of this, a couple of elements, something that I forgot to mention earlier about those landing pages is your page load time. You may have the best landing page in the world, but if it does not load in like 3 seconds, it's not going to work. So there are several factors when it comes to landing page conversions, and like Sam said, A/B testing is very important, and just test different elements. In one shot, in our case, we even noticed one time when we just changed the color of the background, we made it green to blue or something. It just changed everything because obviously the way it appears on people's systems is different. So just friendlier tones, friendlier colors, keeping a prompt shorter, and a page load time. That's
Very
it.
true, very true. Sam?
Awesome. So I think yeah, this is right up my alley. So I mean, I'm a performance marketer by heart. So I think when it comes to tools, there are two sides. One is analytical tools, one is creation. So I think, if you're a startup, doesn't have much money, you would go for something like Unbounce. You don't have a technical team. You go for something like Instapage. So you build your page very quickly, your landing page, right? Or use a simple WordPress landing page, right? So those are some of the tools when it comes to creation. When it comes to analytics, I think it's super important to have all your pixels in place. Facebook pixel, Google pixel, GA, GTM, all of that, and you'll then kind of build your audience on those pixels so that you can leverage that. So a lot of times I see very early stage startups, they get these fundamentals wrong. So I think it's important to get your tools in place whenever you're building either your website or a landing page, because that's going to be the cornerstone of everything that's coming up ahead. So yeah.
Not bad. Not
Yes.
bad at all.
I made it.
You can go for it.
Yeah. So yes, again, the industry also. What I strongly believe, at times you have to be industry specific. As a marketer, you also need to understand what tools really works for your industry. Okay, might work for a different industry, might not work for an on-demand business, right? So that is where your expertise and your experience will come in. What tools are really working? Currently, we use products like Hotjar, Crazy Egg, Heatmap, SEMrush. These are the tools that we are using mostly in terms of our analytics, and that's why that's as a marketer, you need to understand what really works for you. You need to understand what all major inputs and data points that it is really able to capture and give you the right amount of analytics, and that's how it goes basically.
Totally. Anisha, go for it. I don't think we can hear you. I think you might have to repeat yourself. I could see your video running, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So, like I said, I think what Sam mentioned was very relevant. It's very important to have your pixels right. It's very important to have your tracking right, because unless your tracking is in place, no matter what tool you use, it's going to throw random data. It's not going to be actionable insights. So yes, I think at a personal level, Google Analytics and Facebook Analytics has been my Bible. However, I do believe that every business is unique in terms of what their goals are in terms of reach, impressions, conversions, the conversion funnel that they have, so on and so forth. So I do encourage, and I do believe very strongly that it's important to also have an internal tool that's built custom, and we use Metabase, which is internally built within CureFit. It's very important to have something like that, because you might be getting a lot of junk data even on your tracking pixels or on your GA or on your FP. To have a very pinpointed, sharp answer in terms of what's working and what's not working and what are the actionable insights around it, it's important to have a custom made tool that you work on internally.
Got it. Got it. Very interesting. All right. Last segment. So for everybody that's here watching, please start throwing in your questions. I'm sure you had questions come up through our conversations. Please do throw them into the chat, and I will try and get them answered after this last segment that we're just about to jump into. So the last segment is all about community, which is a very overhyped and overbuzzed word. But let's talk about it and try and break it down as much as we can. So the first question goes out to you, Shivani. Communities, or at least the way I think of it, are people who come together because they share a particular value or a thought process or a passion for something, right? So we have like Nike with the Runners Club. We've got like Google who has a developers community. Around their product. How do you bring out, the reason why people should join your community? Like, how do you communicate the value that you are bringing and you're thinking of extracting from the community when you're starting and growing this community? So what are your thoughts on that?
Wow, this is a difficult question for me. I remember we gave it a thought, and we never really got around to doing it. But I think it'll all come down to just interacting with people and finding that common ground. And then seeing, where there are similarities, and then sort of coming together and making something happen. This is not a good answer, I know, but I'm really at a loss for words right now. But I think it'll just be to find common ground, and it can only happen through interaction. I feel just to find out, what are peers at your level thinking about, or what are other people on social thinking about. And there's so many groups. Social media, that's the beauty of social media. You can just create groups about anything and everything, and then see what is popular, see who's joining what in a way, and then try to make something big out of that. Not a good answer, but
that's fine. Still, everybody has insights, and you are all here to learn. So I'm sure there were still some things to take away from that. Sam, go for it.
Yeah. So I think the word community, I think, is synonymous with loyalty. So when you build a community, you've got loyalty, right? I wish a lot of startup founders would understand that, because they think community is just who has time for that. But B2B SaaS products, when I see them churning out content and, trying to build that community, putting that effort is super important. And, the thought process really is, how do you, like, after you have sold, how do you build, a group of people to come together to experience this product even more, right? I think that's the core part of building a community. So after you have done all your selling, how do you bring them back together and have conversations, that can excite them, that can keep them together, that can re-engage and do multiple things, So I think start thinking from there, and then build those sorts of, it could be a podcast, it could be a social media group, build your conversations after that, after that sale.
Got it. Yeah, totally. I would agree. It's again, after that, that's why you build a community, right? So that you have that sort of two-way interaction. So yeah, totally agree. Priyam?
So guys, so basically, see, home services. If I specifically speak about, again, industry-specific campaigns, for us to look into this kind of campaigns and community-based campaigns is basically very important, because see, for me, repeat is very low. Right, today you might use a service, you might not come back to me for the next 3 months, right? So I need to continuously engage with you in terms of proving what all new services that I have, what all new values I can add on, and it always will come up if I have to increase the repeat when I have this community driven campaigns which I drive. Okay, I just want to give you an example. Is that recently we have collaborated with one of the biggest world's biggest FMCG companies, right? What we are strongly speaking over there is basically to build a community, and these companies are also aligning them in terms of understanding why community is so important in terms of building that complete ecosystem around it.
Got it. Got it. Interesting. Anisha?
I think a very popular mistake that most people make or most brands make when it comes to community is that they push brand into it. And that's where you essentially lose out on any sort of communication, because I'm here to talk about what I like about fitness, or I'm here to talk about what I like about, say, salons, or how I like my waxing to get done, or how I like my products to be. I really don't want to listen to your brand. So I think the key for any brand in terms of community engagement is to get the consumer pulse and talk to them about what they want to know. So if it is about fitness, then you give them tips in terms of how can you actually go back every day and still encourage yourself to work out. Or if it is about salons, then you probably tell them about. I never knew about roll-on wax till somebody from Housejoy popped up into my house. So tell me about things like this. I'm interested. Tell me about products like this. Just don't tell me how your brand is so cool. And I think that is the key to community building.
Totally. Very, very.
I just figured out a Housejoy customer right now.
Very, very honest. I've never been a Urban Flap customer. I'm a very, very loyal Housejoy consumer.
Sweet.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to hear that.
So sweet. All right. Awesome. So luckily for me, this whole marketing rapid fire thing started pre-COVID. So I'd already had a community in place, and I was like, thank God, because now I don't have to kind of fight the uphill battle and try and build this online community when 1,000 other people are doing it. So I wanted to ask you all, I mean, now that we know that physical meetings are probably not happening till at least 2021, how do you replicate the feeling and the kind of sense of belonging and those conversations which people like to kind of grab a coffee and chat, and now you can't do that. How do you replicate that sort of a thing on an online community where if I'm in a community of, like, say, I mean, this marketing rapid fire is about 1,500 or so, like, how do I feel like I know the next person, even if it's online and I've never met this person? What would you say, Shivani?
I think video is the way forward. Video is the way to go. And obviously, it's just giving an example. People are nowadays having weddings on Zoom. People are having, we recently had like a bachelorette night the other day, again on Zoom. Everyone had like a beer or a drink. And then we interacted and just had our own party and tried to do cool things with the background just to give more of an environment. But video is the way forward. And I see, just like AirMeet here, there are a lot of video tools out there. I mean, we sort of have to make do with what we can right now while we have to curtail the physical meeting and just use tools that I suppose support bigger numbers. But that is like the only solution that I see for the time being, at least, to maximize the usage of video right now.
Got it.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I think, when it comes to community, there's an element of care, right? Like, you're there because you feel cared. So adding that element while you're building, and here's the thing, right? It only affects the businesses that had physical events. There was virtual communities all along. And I think now brands need to put that additional effort to build community, because if you don't, there are 1,000 other things to do online, like being on a marketing rapid fire. So I think only if you get started in putting an effort in providing that care for your audience, is only then you can build a community. But see, we are in 2020, everything's online. So I think we have no excuse in not putting in that effort. So I think every brand needs to put in the effort, put in the care for their audience, and then from there build your community.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, it goes a long way. I mean, sometimes just kind of being that kind of catalyst to communication, being that place where people can go to because they trust you for X reason, says a lot about you, even whether you're a business or a solopreneur or anything. So yeah, totally agree with you on that. Priya?
Yeah, so quite exciting. This is something I wanted to share because there is a story behind it, and so this is something which we have done, which no one has done right now. So home services is something which you cannot really say can be driven without giving the experience. So I need to be or at your house to do the service, right? There has to be a physical connect. The consumer also are aware of that, right? But there are certain businesses which we have, which are the high AOV businesses like construction, interiors, and painting services, which are basically again a lot driven by the sales efforts that we put in place, right? Our sales team will put in a lot of effort. Now there we are seeing, because consumers are not able to meet, the people are not able to meet, we are seeing a lot of drop in the business. So what we are experimenting right now is creating virtual construction sites, virtual paintings of your
Nice.
houses, which will enable you. Yeah, this has come because of the pandemic, and this is what we are implementing right now. So you can actually get your virtual home built, right? There's an experience you want to build over there. So that's, yes, it's very important.
Very.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's very
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, very very interesting. Anisha.
Yeah, very impressive. Okay, I'm going to again go back and root my answer into a very basic consumer psychology. What is it that you love about meeting a person physically? Two things. You can, something as basic as you can chit chat. And two, of course, there is a certain sense of warmth because you're seeing the person physically. I think in this world of video and conferencing and meetings, the chit chat is lost. So there is no harm in actually asking, how's your cat? Or, did your dog get that vaccine? Or, listen, I know that, you went to shop for this dress. Those smaller nuances of conversation are lost. I think as long as we can bring back that element of humanity, that I care about you and you care about me, and this is what's going on in my life, and this I want to know what's going on in your life, and actually not talk to a blank screen, but no matter how you look, even if your hair is not done, even if you're not wearing your kajal, switch your makeup on. It's okay to show you're vulnerable. It's okay to show you're not okay, but you need to show your face.
Hmm.
So I think those are the few nuances that if you pick up on, the whole warmth will start coming back. And I can say this because when I joined my company on the 15th of April, I've been working with these guys for almost a year now, and I've never met any one of them physically till date.
Oh,
And I share a great rapport with my team. So it is possible to build that warmth. It is possible to build that connection. And some of them are really like I foster some of their dogs. So,
Wow.
uh, it's possible to build something like that. You just have to take a conscious effort in making sure
very
you
true.
can.
Lovely, lovely, lovely to hear your experiences, all of you. So we're at the very, very last question, and I think we've had a wonderful session. So many insights. I really, really enjoyed listening to all of you. So, Shivani, next question back out to you. Uh, Community building, right? Is it something that only the marketing team has to take care of? Or is it everybody who kind of joins in and promotes this community? Like, it could be in a simple sales message, like, hey, blah, blah, blah. Like, you might be interested to chat with other people who know about X. Or is it something that only the marketing team takes care of? What is your thought?
I've always, believe in the fact that the more people you have, the more reach you have, and the more awareness you can bring. So definitely, I wouldn't constrain it just specifically to the marketing team. If there are others who are interested in this, they should really go forward and take it up. Like simple examples, in our company, not just the marketing team, they're not the only ones who write blogs, who write
Mm,
articles. It's free and open to anyone else in the company. If you have a passion for writing, you want to write, join in. We'll publish your article. It's same the concept. And I definitely, in this case, if it's a sales message, why not? The whole company should take part. Everyone should go all out and promote it, because that way your followers see it as well. So everyone, let's say 100 people, share the message, and 100 followers see that. It's definitely brings reach. It definitely helps, spread the word.
got
So yeah, all out for going beyond marketing.
got it. Sam?
Yeah, I can guarantee you no other team will put their effort. So the onus is on the marketing team because the KPI is on the marketing team. So I think the initial effort needs to come from the marketing team. If you're not the loudest in your company, your company is not going to do it. I can guarantee you that. So I think the onus the effort has to be driven from the marketing team. And I think it is so important. See, because if only the marketing team is doing it, it's one perspective. If you need to get the product team involved, you need to get maybe your CTO involved, you need to get your CEO involved. Say you're doing a podcast, you're talking about some latest release. So I think it's super important to involve different team members in this community building exercise. So customer success, talking about releasing a new feature. So like I said, bring a product manager. And I think so it starts with the marketing team, but then you need to bring others as well from your brand. So otherwise community building is not.
You made the buzzer and then you added one more sentence. You literally hit the buzzer and I was so proud of you.
Oh God.
It's all good. Priyam, go for it.
Yeah. So yes, marketing is always at the center of the whole efforts, right? You have to be, because that's what you are driving, because you need to push content, you need to always be visible. That's your thing. But yes, you also have to engage all your stakeholders and business stakeholders into it, because you are not driving the business. The business inputs, how the business is run operationally, how things are happening, has to come from the business side of it. You have to engage them. There's very interesting experience that we have. We always get our business stakeholders, get the article written, right? Now give us the raw files. We engage them. We ask them to do that. That's a practice that we have, because these are the guys who will be able to speak about these services in a way, and then it will engage better with the consumer. So that's where we strongly push this. And yes, marketing is always in the forefront or at the center of the whole activity to start with.
Got it. Right on the buzzer.
I think the way we need to look at community as far as teams are concerned, the organization itself is a community. I mean, that's what you're there for. So if you can't realize that, I think the onus is on the HR and the hiring manager to ensure that every person who comes within the organization is as passionate about the cause or is as passionate about the product as you want the marketing team to be and as you want the consumer to be. Because unless it's driven like that, I don't think the product can be a success. I'm sorry, that's how I do.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean,
preach it.
You need everybody. Yeah, totally. I would agree. I mean, I think all of you have said something very important about this point. So, very cool. That brings us to the end of it. I did see one question in the chat box. I'm going to quickly ask it. So, Akhtiar asks, for a startup, what is important in terms of social media marketing, promoting brand or promoting product? Either one of you can take it and you can all chime off each other. Whoever wants to go first.
Go ahead, Priyam.
Yeah, so I know Akhtiar personally. He is also from. He's basically a startup enthusiast, and he has founded a company on the home services platform. He comes from my native place, where I come from. Nice. So that's why. So I know what he's trying to ask for is basically to know about the things. Yes, home services is completely into engagement. Specifically, it is basically where you engage and continuously engage with your customer, educate your customer about the services, which are the new things which are happening in the market, what are the new technologies that has come up in terms of providing a solution for a particular service. It is very, very, very important. And yes, definitely. So social media is something which we really work on across all the channels of social media we work on, and very important for any new age company, for a new startup to specifically focus and emphasize on running campaigns and driving traffic from social media.
Got it. Anyone else wants to chime in? No?
Okay, so I'm going to attempt answering this, and I hope I'm able to answer. I think the question that I got, if I got it correctly, is whether you promote a brand or whether you promote a product, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
What do you want your consumer to know you for? Do you want your consumer to know you for
Okay.
fitness, or do you want your consumer to know you for workout, or do you want your consumer to know you for the brand CureFit? Similarly, do you want your consumer to know you for the great sanitary napkins that you make, or do you want to be known as the Hindustan Lever or the PNG or whatever? So I think it is very, very important that you think consumer first and what is going to make a dent into his psychology and how is he going to remember you faster and then take a call in terms of whether it is the product or whether it is the brand. Because in both the cases, you can have ample amount of case studies. There are times when a product has made a brand like Apple, and then there are also times where a brand has made a product.
Yes,
Definitely.
So,
Yeah.
like I said, what do you want to be known for?
totally.
I think it's wonderfully put. Yeah.
Very true. Awesome.
Anisha dropping all sorts of bombs. Anyway.
All of you really,
Nice.
really did awesome. I mean, personally, I use this as like my, marketing like update every 2 weeks. I get all of you on board, and so my
Nice.
brain just like kind of sinks in with all this information. So, really, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for taking time out. Right
Yeah.
after this session, there is the networking. So please feel free to go out and book a table and chat with people that are attending. But yeah, looking forward. Please stay in touch and yeah, have a happy weekend ahead.
Thank you
Sure.
so
Thank
much.
you so
Thanks,
much.
Thank you.
Vanshika.
Thanks a
Thanks so
lot.
much,
Thank you,
guys.
everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank
guys.
you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Bye
Bye.
bye.